TuneIn Premium has all the radio you want for $7.99 a month. That's all the radio you want for $7.99 a month. That means every single Major League Baseball game, every single NFL game, the most massive collection of commercial-free radio stations in the world, over 5.5 million podcasts, and unlimited access to 40,000 audiobooks. Download the TuneIn Radio app for a free 7-day trial of TuneIn Premium. TuneIn Premium. Boundless audio.
A man who wears the 10 pounds of gold, the nature boy, Ric Flair.
You know, I always like to take this opportunity to talk about myself. Woo!
The 16-time heavyweight champion has arrived.
I've got the style and profile like never before.
The greatest talker in the history of the business is behind the mic once again.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine like, jet flying, son of a gun. Woo!
This is Wooooo Nation with Ric Flair.
I'm the man. Ric Flair. Ladies and gentlemen, Nature Boy Ric Flair here, 16 times your World Heavyweight Champion, the host of Wooooo Nation, along with my multi-millionaire co-host, the legendary, second only to Jim Andrews in terms of finances in the state of Alabama, the Crimson Tide leader, owner of First Family Mortgage, and assorted women around the world.
Oh, my gosh.
Conrad Thompson. Thompson, hello, man.
You're in a good mood this morning, Rick.
I'm in a great mood. Guess why?
Well, I know exactly why.
Yeah,
We've got a hell of a
I was
guest.
with him last night. I am with a great friend, a great mind that probably has gone unnoticed in the history of our business, one of the greatest referees, and obviously one of the top 2 or 3 personalities.
Yeah.
I'm saying right there, Bobby Heenan, Arn Anderson, my good friend and a great, great personality, referee, booker, formerly of the world class of Dallas, the legendary David Manning, who's got more stories and more people laugh than any man alive, as you found out last night. Big Dave, how are you, man?
I'm great, Slick Rick. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. You even had Conrad bewildered last night in some of these.
Yeah,
stories.
we laughed so hard our faces hurt last night. Thank you so much.
It brought back some good memories, didn't it?
Oh, my God.
So, I tell people I could write a book. I said I could write a book just about me, my escapades with Ric Flair when he would hit town.
Yeah, nice. And I wonder why I've been divorced 4 times. Good thing I wasn't around Dave the last 2.
I was going to say I only helped in 2 of those.
No, he would never let me marry this stupid son of a bitch. Edit that part, okay? I wouldn't have had time to.
Oh.
So, Dave, what's up, man?
Life is good, man.
Yeah, you got
I'm staying busy.
2 big companies going on. Give us a little history on that.
Got 2 companies. I own a company called Extreme Travel, which furnishes travel all over the world. Did over $100 million last year in travel. We private label a lot of companies out there. We can go into a credit union, bank, savings, whatever company, we can turn them into where they have their own private label travel portal. And then I own a network company called Paycation. You know, why take a vacation if you can take a paycation? And we got over 40,000 reps around the United States and the world.
Wow.
Hey, it's travel. It's like we used to do it, except it's not quite as fun, but it's a lot better staying on a cruise ship or a resort.
Yeah, well, by the time this podcast over, you and Conrad may be going into business again.
Oh.
You guys will formulate something here. So, Dave, I was. Let's just start last night with probably the most legendary story between you and I, with the Bloody Marys coming out of Corpus Christi.
Oh God. Well, Rick and I go. We fly into Corpus Christi. We have the matches.
What year would this have been?
This would have been probably around 83, 84.
Yeah.
And we'd been in San Antonio the night before. And we always went to Corpus early because, man, it was a party town. And so, God, we partied all night long to the point where trying to make our plane, we all flew Southwest back then. So we get to Southwest and we get on the plane and all the stewardesses knew us. So first thing we said was, bring us a Bloody Mary. Matter of fact, bring us 2. Maybe bring us 3. She comes back with a whole tray, like she takes up and down the aisle, sets it down. It's all Bloody Marys. I mean, there had to be like 24 of them. And we drank every one of them, didn't we?
Yeah. Just you and I. Now go ahead.
Oh, so anyway, we get back to Dallas. Back then, in the ring, I was the referee. Behind the scenes, I mean, I did it all. I was a jack of all trades. I was Fritz's right-hand guy. I did all the syndication, met with Channel 39 on Wednesdays, did all the tape setups. And so on Tuesday, we would do interview. So Rick and I get back to town, and I got Lawton, Oklahoma on Wednesday night. So first of all, I come back, and I'm not in shape to go to interviews. And so we skip that. We end up partying all day long, and all of a sudden...
Well, what had happened? They'd cancel the town that night.
Yeah, they cancel the town. And so all of a sudden, out of the blue, Rick says, "Hey, it's Ray Stevens' birthday. Let's go to Minneapolis and party." I said, "Oh, we can't. I got Lawton, Oklahoma tomorrow night." "Oh, come on, let's go." So we get... next thing I know, we're at the airport, and we get to the airport so late to make the plane. I don't have time to park the car. Rick says, "Just pull up front." And back then, you could get on at the last minute. So we pull up front. Rick takes my keys, gives them to some guy standing in front of the airport, a bell guy, says,
I gave him $200.
Yeah, it says, "Park that car and put the keys at the front desk of American." We get on the plane, and we're off. We get to Minneapolis, party all night.
This wasn't a valet service.
No. This was a freaking guy.
It was that day.
Yeah, no.
This was a guy working out front that brought bags inside.
Yeah.
But loved us.
Loved us.
Knew who we were.
So we party all night. And I said, we got to make that plane in the morning. God. We go to bed about 4. We got to get up at 5:30. We get up at 5:30. And I look out the window, and there's like 4 foot of snow. I'm like, oh, my God. I won't say what I said. And I said, we're not going to make the plane. And so we get a cab, and it takes us forever to get to the airport. We get on the plane, and they have to de-ice us like 3 times.
Wow.
So we fly home, and from the time you hit the ground, we're in pretty good shape, but then we're like, where's the car? Now, I don't know if you've been to DFW.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
It's like a city.
Yeah, it is.
So we have to get a cab to drive us up and down every row until we could find my car. It took almost 2 hours to find the damn car. And then we get in, and Rick says, "Let me drive." We're driving like 100, 120 miles an hour all the way to Lawton, Oklahoma.
David's a promoter, and I got to wrestle it. I mean, we weren't drinking and driving.
No, we weren't drinking and driving.
Hammering it down the road. We hadn't been to bed in 2 days.
So we get there. As soon as I walk in, they go, "Fritz wants you to call him." I said, "Oh, God." So I get on the phone. I call Fritz. He says, "Be in my office in the morning at 7 o'clock. I was like, "Yes, sir." And so I hang up, thinking everything's going to calm down now. I'm walking back out. Just as the main event gets to go in the ring, all the police go down to watch the match instead of staying up front. I hear a girl at the box office yells, "He's taking the money! He's taking the money!" And I look, here's a guy running out the door. He's got the money bag. So I'm thinking, what the heck? So I reach and grab my 9mm. I go running out the door after him. We go around behind the building, and I'm yelling, "Stop, stop." All of a sudden, I just start firing off shots. Bam, bam, bam. I'm shooting at him.
This is during the main event. I'm listening to Mike Von Erich. The whole building is going, "What is going on?" Bam, 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 bam.
Shootout out the back.
Yeah.
So anyway, I ended up hitting him with a gun. I ran out of bullets, so I smacked him in the face with a gun. The police came. I'm thinking I'm going to be in trouble, and back then they just wanted to know. I told them I shot some shots in the air to warn him. They were like, "Why?"
Wow.
It was good times, though.
The money was blowing all over the place.
Oh, the money was blowing. And Buddy Robert, the Birds were there. So Buddy comes up, and this guy's got a big slit across his face where I hit him with the 9mm. Well, Buddy's telling everybody I shot him in the face. Oh, God.
That was just one time. Oh, my God. So we're just going to go through history. Give us a great, because I'm not the only world champion he entertained. Let's start with a great Harley Race story.
Hardy, well, as you know, he was a badass.
Yeah.
And Hardy had no fear of anything or anybody. And Harley comes to town one night, and I take him down here. We had a club called the Bell Ringer. And so we go in. They had one side, it was all entertainment. They had the other side where they had pool tables. So we go in. We're playing pool and having some fun. And this place had like 5 big SMU football players were the bouncers. And one of them was being real obnoxious. And so Harley has some words with him. And then there was like 4 or 5 more coming there. Well, Harley had a steel plate in his left
from the car accident.
From the car accident. He had a steel plate literally in his arm. And it was like a hammer.
Yeah. Like,
so
like carrying a bag of like a roll of nickels or a quarter.
Yeah. So next thing I know, now I go to this place pretty regular. Here's like 4 or 5 bouncers looking at us, and Harley's looking at him. He's like, "What are you looking at?" And I look around. I turn around. I got a pool stick in one hand, and Harley says, "What do you think, kid? Me and the kid here can whip every one of you." And I'm thinking, "Oh shit!" Excuse my French, but I did that.
Yeah. Just tell your story. Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, "Oh man, well here comes the manager." Manager's like, "No, be cool, be cool. Everything's cool." So he brings us 2 drinks. He said, "Here on the house." He sets them down. So I pick mine up. Harley's like, "No, don't drink that." And he takes his and pours it on the pool table. Oh. I'm like, "Oh, God." He says, "Pour yours on the table." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." "Come on, kid, pour yours on the table." So I pour my drink on the table.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
And now I'm like, here the bouncers are back. And here comes the manager. He calms everything down. So we went around the other side, and they're going to do some kind of show. And some guy tries to block Harley's view from, and he's facing the other way. Harley
It's like a concert?
It was like they were doing something there on stage. They had some girls up there and stuff. And so anyway, Harley says, "I can't see. Can you see, kid?" And I said, "No, I can't see." So he says, "Somebody better move." This guy doesn't react. So Harley grabs him by the hair, yanks him down back over this rail, and then chops him right in the throat. So I'm thinking, oh, it's on now. And, so we did get out of there that night without any further trouble, but I never could go back to the club.
I can't imagine why. Pour your drink on the pool table. That's the way it was. I tell these stories on the podcast, and we've had Harley on, and unless you've been around him when he was younger, nobody understands. Every day, he just wanted to prove that he was the world champion.
No, and you know what else he would do? You've been with him. Yeah. You'd go out to drink. And I remember the first few times he'd come to town, he'd order beer, and he'd order me a beer. Well, he could drink beer like no one I ever seen. Mm-hmm. Well, when he'd finish his beer, whether you were finished or not, he'd say 2 more.
Oh, and that sounds familiar.
So they'd bring 2 more, and so I got now a beer and a half. He'd finish his, 2 more. Well, pretty soon, Don Diamond was out with us this night. So pretty soon, I got like 8 drinks. And 7 of them are full. And Harley's like, "Come on, kid, drink up." And I'm like, "Oh, God." Well, all of a sudden, I'm going, he goes, "Hey." And he's looking at Don Diamond. He goes, "I saw that. Diamond's pouring his under the table." Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so Harley's all pissed off. He's like, "What the hell are you doing?" He said, "The kid here can drink. Drink him up, kid." So I'm drinking. God, I'm so sick. I got so sick. So the next time I went out with him, I said, "I'm not doing that anymore." So I said, "This time I'll order alcohol." So they come, and I said, "What do y'all want to drink?" Harley says, "I'll have a beer." And I said, "I think I'll have a Crown and 7 tonight." Harley said, "Crown and 7? Bring me a scotch. I'd much rather drink whiskey." I was like, "Oh, God."
Wow.
Oh, God. Yeah, the memory is just, there's so many ways to go with this. I just, the Von Erichs, and he was...
Well, you were telling us last night how you first got with Fritz and the Von Erichs and all that and how it came about. I thought that was a cool story because I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, I wrestled here in Texas, and
amateur
wrestler, wrestled in high school. Actually, we didn't really have the UIL didn't even recognize it at that time, so I had to go to Oklahoma and other states to get competition, and actually set a record here that can never be beat because when I was in the 8th grade, there was no rule about you couldn't wrestle at the high school tournament. So I went up to the high school and challenged the kid, the varsity kid that was on the MacArthur high school team, and beat him. So I went and represented the high school as an 8th grader at state and won state in the 8th grade. And then 4 times more I made the finals and in the state finals. So it can't be done anymore unless now, even if you were to flunk, you can only participate 4 years. So I was coaching on the side, and I'm helping some kids because, like I say, there wasn't very many coaches around. So I had a team there in Irving. I was coaching at the Y, and we go up to Denton, and we had a tournament. So we're wrestling, and one of my kids is wrestling another kid, and this kid kept trying to do a switch, but he was throwing it over the back instead of under the leg to get leverage. So my kid beats him, and after the match is over, I go over and I say, hey, let me help you out here. So I got him down on the mat, and I showed him a few pointers. And
the kid that your boy beat.
Yeah. So I just helped him out a little bit and showed him how to do the switch. Later on, I go to the concession stand. I go to order a sandwich, and I go to pay, and the girl's like, it's on the house. I said, it's on the house? What do you mean? She said, compliments of Fritz Von Erich. Well, I was a fan back then. I watched wrestling, and I'm like, Fritz Von Erich's here? She said, well, he was. And he said, if you came to the concession stand, pick up the tab. He was sponsoring the event anyway. So about 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from one of the wrestling coaches in town. He says, Jack Atkinson's trying to reach you. I said, who's Jack Atkinson? He said, Fritz Von Erich. So he said, you want me to give him your number? And I said, sure. So I get this phone call, and Fritz says, can you come out to my house? He lived on Fritz Lane out in Lake Dallas. So I go out to his house, and very intimidating guy. Sat down, and he says, I've been doing some due diligence on you. You're a pretty good wrestler. I said, thank you. And he said, remember that kid you helped at the Denton tournament? And I was like, no. He said, after one of the matches, you got out on the ground, and you literally helped the kid good. I said, well, there's not a lot of good coaches in town. He's like, Kerry! Kerry comes walking in, and he said, that's him. I want you to be his private coach. So I started coaching Kerry and David at the time. Fritz had a gym, he had mats, everything. So a few weeks later, he says, why don't you come to the matches? I'll let you pick up some extra money working as a second, which means I just carried the robes and stuff back and forth to the ring. And because at that time, I was just like 20 years old, and had a beard. So after about a couple of months, Fritz comes in one night, and he looks at me, and he says, shave that beard, and I'll let you referee a match. And I'm like, wow, because back then, all of the referees across the nation were retired wrestlers. Mm-hmm. They were just big guys that had retired. So he has me come in, has me referee a few matches, told me to come down to the Sportatorium, start helping sell tickets and stuff. So I started refereeing, and I was a hit. They advertised me as the youngest referee in history and, told my background. So
who was your first match? Do you remember?
My first match was Paul. They called him Paul Pershman back then.
Oh, yeah. Paul Pershman is Buddy Rose.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
okay.
Yeah, Buddy Rose.
From Minneapolis.
Yep, it was Buddy Rose and, oh, God, Jack. I can't remember Jack's last name. But anyway, so I refereed that. And I just do the preliminary matches. But the fans got into it because, like I say, we had Bronco Lubitsch, we had Danny Pletchus, but they just didn't get around great. They're pushing, all of them pushing 60, and I could dive through the ropes. And Lord Alfred Hayes, matter of fact, come in one night, and he says, let me tell you something, kid. He said, this is theater. He said, when you count, it's not 1, 2, it's like 1. He's like telling me how to do the hand, and you got to let the crowd see it because they can't all hear you. And so then I'm sitting at the Sportatorium.
He was the Tommy Young.
Yeah.
Texas, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
And so I'm down at the Sportatorium one day, and Fritz come in, and every Tuesday they did the booking meeting upstairs. It was him. Back that time it was Gary Hart, and Bronco would sit in, and Pletch would sit in. So he comes in one day, and he looks at me, and he says, come on upstairs, kid. So we go upstairs, and I just sit off on the side. They had chairs around the front of Fritz's desk. Fritz always had a cigarette going, sometimes 2.
Yeah.
And he had an angle he come up with, and he looks at Gary Hart, and he said, what do you think? And Gary says, I like it. He looks at Pletch, says, what do you think, Pletch? Pletch says, I like it. He looks at Bronco, what do you think? And he said, I like it. All of a sudden out of the blue, he looks at me and says, what do you think? I said, I don't like it. And he said, well, first of all, you're fired. Now tell me why you don't like it. So I told him what I thought. He sat there for a second thinking. All of a sudden he said, kid's right. So they change it. We go to leave the room, and he says, you stay. They left. He said, I could have told them I was going to go out there and take a shit in the ring, and they just said they liked it. And he said, I want you in every booking meeting, and I want you to speak your piece. Within 6 months, I was helping call finishes with Gary.
Yeah,
Gary taught me a lot. Gary Hart was a booker.
Because guys didn't want to say buck anything he said. I mean, it was the way it was. You don't want to buck Eddie Graham. If Eddie Graham had an idea, you don't want to buck
Right.
Geigel, or any of those guys.
It's still that way today, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, that's different though, because one guy has always been like that. He's been real consistent.
Yeah.
He wants your insight, but he makes the final decision.
Sure.
But Fritz was a tough guy. I mean, in terms of dealing with a huge ego.
He was a tough guy, and also he made a lot of people didn't like to wrestle in Texas because everybody, if you weren't stiff, I mean, guys would take a beating here.
Yeah.
They would take a beating. That was always the joke. If you wrestled Fritz, you left with, 18 lace marks on your chest after he put that boot to you.
He told a great story last night about blackjack, and of course everybody knows how fond Rick is of blackjack. Share that blackjack story.
So anyway, over time, I was doing the finishes for a long time, and then some things happened here, so I became the booker. And so Blackjack Mulligan had come to town, and Fritz was kind of complaining that he wasn't laying them in. And so one night, Rick Hazard was refereeing for us at that time. I said, Rick, because my phone rang, I pick it up, it's Fritz. And that night he's wrestling Kevin. Mulligan is.
Yeah.
So he says, you tell Blackjack to lay him in tonight. I said, and he said, you tell him, or next week it's me and him. I said, okay. So I tell Hazard, go back there and tell Mulligan to lay him in tonight. So he goes back there, and I got two guys sitting in front of me. I'm lining up a match, and all of a sudden my door goes flying open, and there stands Mulligan, and Mulligan's a big guy. I mean, he takes up the whole freaking door. He's ducking. And so behind me, about 2 foot behind me, is the wall.
Yeah.
And then I got a desk in front of me. Mulligan looks at the two guys sitting there and goes, out. They get up like puppy dogs and go out. He slams that door, comes over there and takes that desk and shoves it all the way up against the wall. He's got me mashed up against the wall. And he goes, you want me to lay one in? I'll show you how to lay one in. And I'm like, hey, I'm just the messenger. Fritz said if you don't lay him in tonight, next week it's you and him.
Did he lay him in?
He laid him in.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's fighting Kevin. You fight for your life when you fight Kevin.
Exactly. Oh, God. Oh. Yeah, I mean, we can do this for 6 hours. I mean,
We did last night. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, so David, which he informed me last night, I tell everybody, David had a minor problem in his youth. He was what's called an elite gambler. And how he beat that without going to rehab, I have no idea. But I have put David had $200,000 on him, right? On a $30,000 a year salary, and the next week I'd be here, and he'd take and borrow $1,000 till the end of the week. That was the way we rolled. So give us an insight to that, Dave.
Well, it turned around because I used to bet all the time, and I'd lose just like everybody else, And so the bookie I was using liked me. So one day he's like, kid, come over to the house, let's have a drink. So I go to his house, and he says, I like you. So if you're going to gamble, why don't you win at it? I said, I'm all for that. And he says, I'm going to show you how to bet my side. He said, I win every week. He said, I got about 100 guys like you. He said, you go find 100 guys. You go find 50 guys that'll bet $25 to $50 a week. You'll make $100,000 a year. And he said, because they lose.
Right.
And so,
where were you getting your lines back then? Now it's all over the internet, but back then, where
paper.
you guys?
They'd come out on the paper, and then there was 800 numbers you could dial, get right into Vegas and get them. And so we would get the lines, and I'm not going to sit here and say it's fixed, but
it's fixed.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we would run a chart,
alert.
and if 80% of the people bet one team, we bet the other one.
Right.
And so we started winning, and I would win, and then a word got around, you got to call Manning, man, if you want to bet. And holy crap, I had people calling me, and Rick knows, we had some wrestlers that like to gamble, and so, God, they'd be in a panic if I hadn't called yet. I'd call the dressing room, and somebody pick up the phone, I'd be like, Carolina -3.
It just was in the dressing room.
Oh, my gosh.
And then all the guys would be running for the phones.
Yeah. No, I've seen it, though. So tell the story about the chick that took the $40,000 in the Halliburton. We've never seen.
Is this the Vegas story you're talking about?
Yeah, I guess. So he says, Rick, come on, I got to run to the airport with this chick.
So I couldn't go to Vegas. So we wanted to make a bet. So I told Rick, I said, we got to go out to the airport. So Rick doesn't even know what's going on. So we go with the girl. So
what was her name? She worked for
Vicky or
merchandise.
something. Yeah. So anyway, she's got the freaking suitcase. Well, back then, the TSA, none of that didn't exist. You just went through X-ray and got on the plane,
With how much? The 40 grand?
Yeah, she's got 40 grand in a suitcase. And so
and he gave her.
And he didn't know it. So she opens the case and Rick says, "What the hell is that?" And I said, "We're going to put 40 grand tonight on USC."
I said, "You got to be kidding me!" I said, "We won that, have we, so far?" He said, "Yeah, but we're on a roll." You were 13 and what?
13 out of 14.
So you guys had bet together.
Yeah,
13
we're together. We're up 40 grand. He gave it.
So you're just following David's lead.
Of course I was.
Yeah.
I didn't lose any money, but
Yeah.
I said, "Why don't we just keep 30?" And I said, "No, we're all 40." I said, "Okay."
But we should have known we couldn't go 14 for 14.
So tell a story about the chick. We've never seen her since.
Yeah. The play didn't get made. Twice that happened to me. I had the other kid that bowled with me. He's out there, and I send a few $1,000s out there with him. I call up, I make a bet, we win. So I call him the late game, make a bet, we win. So I call him back, I make a bet the next day, we win. The bowl games were going on. So finally, a buddy of mine, Ronnie DiPolo, calls me. He says, "Is Rusty supposed to be betting for you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, he thought you were going to lose. He ain't made no bets." Oh. And now he's scared because I had turned in like 2,000 to 3,000 into about 20.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking he's out there betting, put 5 on this, 5, and he keeps thinking I'll lose. And we're just winning. Find out he's never made a bet.
Wow.
He's hoping I'd lose and he's going to keep it.
Oh, God. It was so much fun.
All right, now we're going to tell you a little bit about Mack Weldon. If you haven't already, you owe it to yourself to go check out MackWeldon.com. Not only are you going to look great, but you're going to be supporting Woo Nation as well. So if you enjoy the podcast, do us a favor and go to MackWeldon.com right now. You're going to find a whole bunch of gear there you're going to like, and you're going to get 20% off your first order just using the code FLAIR. That's FLAIR. So make sure you check it out. It's MackWeldon.com. And what you'll find is that they believe in smart design, premium fabrics, and simple shopping. You really do get to just click a few buttons, boom, your gear's on the way. All their products are naturally antimicrobial. What's that mean? It means it's going to eliminate the odor. You're not going to stink. We want you to be comfortable. So if you don't like your very first pair, you can keep it, and Mack Weldon will still refund you. Really think about that. Who offers a guarantee like that? No questions asked. If you don't like it, only at MackWeldon.com. These guys are a New York company. They live and breathe New York, and we're talking all your gear, your underwear, your socks, your shirts. You're going to look good and perform well. This stuff is awesome, whether you're working out, going to work, going on dates, just everyday life. And here's some really cool things you need to know about their stuff. The legs of the underwear, they're designed to stay put, meaning you never have to shove your hand down your pants to adjust the legs of your underwear. That's not a good look. The socks really are one size fit all. Now, a lot of socks say that, but they really mean it, and they have a cushioned footbed. Most of all, they're guaranteed to never slide down your legs. You're not going to look very professional grabbing at your socks all day. And the undershirts are made just a little bit longer. Why? Because they want to make sure you stay tucked in and hidden all day long, and it's going to keep you cool in the summer. You need to check out MackWeldon.com and make sure you get a good deal. Enter promo code FLAIR and get 20% off right now at MackWeldon.com.
So how did you? We never we never came to a conclusion. How did you get over that? How did you stop?
Well, when
aside from the fact that when the guys came over and broke your roommate's leg, and pulled
that was his problem though. He didn't pay.
and the other guy, they pulled his teeth out with pliers.
Yeah, they just crushed his tooth. They didn't pull it.
Well, this is a different side of the world right here.
No, they, when Fritz found out he had cancer, and I had pretty much kind of quit. I wasn't playing as much. And I tell you why. Back whenever, I went through a time there where I needed money. I always think everything happens for a reason, and this guy smarted me up to the business, and I was winning. And then I started telling everybody. It seemed then I started losing because I just tell you, some people they're not supposed to win.
Right.
And so if you start telling those kind of people, you're not going to win. And things when Fritz found out he had cancer, and I was a pallbearer for that family 4 times.
Yeah.
And so I went out and I was visiting Fritz, and one night, and he was like, he said, "I know you winning," and I said, "Yeah, I've been winning." And he's like, "You got to give it up, man." He said, "It's going to get you someday." And I was like, Well, I said I'm staying busy. Believe it or not, I left. I never made another bet.
Was that right?
Never made another bet. Guys will call me. They'll still call me sometime today.
Yeah.
They'll say, hey, what do you think this week? Last week, Texas and OU.
Yeah.
Brian Dorsey calls me. He says, what do you think? He said, I think Oklahoma's going to win by 50. I said, what's the line? I pull up the line, and the day before the line was 17. I said, well, that's pretty low for this. And he's like, no, they're going to beat them by 50. And he's an alumni of Texas.
Yeah.
So the next day he calls me. And the way betting should work, if everybody's betting one side,
You move the line.
the line goes up
Right.
to try to. Well, the next day the line had gone down, but everybody's betting Oklahoma, and the line went down.
Yeah.
It's kind of like saying we want more people to bet Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So I said, man, you got to go with Texas. He thought I was crazy. I didn't think they'd win outright.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. They did?
they did.
Looked like an entirely different team. How would you have bet Michigan and Michigan State? Because I never saw Michigan State beating Michigan.
Especially, you almost always got to go with the home team if it's going to happen.
Of course.
And
In the way it happened, it just makes you wonder sometimes.
You can script that.
Fumble the punt.
Yeah.
Everything's a work.
that's what I think. I think they sat around and have a big booking meeting at the beginning of the year.
Instead of the NWA board of directors, it's the BCS.
Exactly. But we had a good run here. I mean, a lot of people don't know how popular wrestling is. I'll tell people till today. In '83, '84, wrestling was so popular. Not only here in Israel.
Yeah, tell us about when you went to Israel and they recognized, or you heard a story about a football coach in Israel and what they said.
Tom Landry, we would make appearances here and sign autographs and stuff, and the Cowboys a lot of time would be there, and we would have the crowd. Especially Kerry. Kerry was over so big here.
I keep telling people that was.
And it was unbelievable. And so Tom Landry goes to Israel, and he goes into a diamond store. And he said he went into the diamond store. The guy says, "Oh, my God, you're Tom Landry." And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "Coach of the Dallas Cowboys." And he said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "You're from Dallas. You must know the Von Erichs."
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the truth. They said the only nights that Israel and Lebanon wasn't fighting was on Saturday nights because they were all watching wrestling. I'll tell you a great Israel story. Back then, you had to fly Dallas, New York to Paris, Paris to Tel Aviv. The birds are on the plane, Michael, Terry, and Buddy. So Buddy gets he's blitzed, and so we land in Paris. So when we take off from Paris to go, the last 3 hours, 4 hours, they cut Buddy off. No more drinking, and he is mad. He's raising hell on the plane.
When you could read it, it's a different time,
Yeah, and so
now you just sit there and shut up, or you get arrested when you land.
Exactly, and so we land in Tel Aviv, and there are like 40,000 people at the airport. It was incredible. The tarmac is packed.
It was like the Beatles.
Yeah.
We actually like with WWE when we first went to Europe in the 90s.
Really?
It was huge. I mean, it was a battle to get to the bus.
And so everybody's getting off the plane. You had to go down the stairs onto the tarmac. They had a bus waiting on us to take us by security. They weren't even going to put us through security. They were just going to take us around, and then they would take our passports and get them stamped. So Buddy's the last one. I said, Michael, we got to get him off the plane. So Michael gets on one side. I got him on the other side. So we go off. Come on, Buddy. We're dragging him off the plane. So as we walk out on the steps to go down the stairs, all of a sudden Buddy sees the Jeeps, the tarmac, all the people, and he's looking around. He's got this wild look in his eyes. And I'm like, Buddy, come on. All of a sudden he's like, you son of a bitches killed Jesus. I'm like, oh my God, Buddy. So, I'm looking at Michael. I said, he's yours, brother. I'm out of here.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
The free birds.
Oh.
We had Michael on, and of course he loves you. And we had Kevin on, but I mean, I tell Conrad, is obviously a huge fan. He's knows more about wrestling than Dave Meltzer.
No, not sure.
No, the history of it. I mean, he likes it. For someone to have the means he does, he likes wrestling as much as he likes NCAA football.
Yeah, I mean, learning about the old days is fun, and I really enjoy hearing stories like what you shared last night about you going down the road, you seeing the Freebirds on the side of the road. Oh, it's nighttime.
Yeah, I'm coming from Lawton. I'm the last one out because I was the promoter. So I'm coming down the road, and this road's empty at night. So I'm running about 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, and I see as I come over the hill, I can tell it's the Bird's car. It's pulled over on the shoulder. So as I I go down the hill, I turn off my lights. It's pitch black outside, so I turn off my lights, and I can just barely see. So I'm going, and as I come up over the hill, they're all out taking a leak on the side of the road. So I reach down and get my Glock. I roll my window down, and as I go by, I go, bam, bam, I fire off like 3 shots in the air. They're diving on the ground and everything, and then I see them run into their car. I'm like, oh, hell. So I'm going as fast as I can, you know, and they're trying to chase me, so I pulled in beside a little station and got by the wall, and then I see them go flying by about 100 miles an hour.
They knew it was you, though, right?
Oh, yeah, they knew.
Yeah.
And you're going to catch hell, too, because, you know, payback time. You know, they used to take Buddy. Oh, I felt sorry for Buddy. One night, Fritz hits him. We're doing a strap match. Well, Fritz brought, it was like, looked like a beaver tail. This thing was like 6 inches wide. It was about a 1/4 inch thick. It was a big strap, you know, like the barbershops use.
Yeah.
So Fritz brings that thing, right? He said it's what he used to whip the boys with. And so Buddy does something by the ring, so Fritz hits him across the back with it, and it pops. And Buddy's got this big whelp on his back. So when we get to the dressing room, Buddy, the Birds are going to do an interview about the match coming up. So Michael's looking at Buddy, and he says, God, it didn't even leave a mark. He's got a mark so big on his back. And Michael says, we can't go out there without a mark on your back. Let me have that thing. So he takes it. Oh, and Buddy's like, oh. So Buddy bends over. Michael goes, wham, hits him on the back. Buddy's like running around, arching his back. And Terry says, that's not a good mark. Let me have it. So they beat him. They beat that Buddy. I was like, oh, God, Buddy.
That's the best.
Oh, God.
It was good. He shows up at the airport one time. Because if you got drunk with the Birds, you better not go to sleep. No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
One, you probably going to wake up wet.
Oh, yeah.
So one night, Buddy shows up at the airport, and Buddy didn't care. He didn't care. He shows up, and he's got black marker. They circled both his eyes. He looked like one of the guys in the Little Rascals, you know. And every other tooth is black. They colored him with marker. And Buddy, you know, is like, he don't care. He's just at the airport. I'm like, oh, my God.
That's amazing.
Oh, man.
So you probably were traveling with Harley once upon a time. Rick's told me a lot of fun road stories about being in the car when Harley's driving. You got any good Harley driving stories?
The same night we were at the Bell Ringer. Harley had rented a car, and so we leave and we're going down Lemon Avenue. And Harley was, I mean, like he had no fear. And back then you didn't wear seatbelts, you know. We are flying, and all of a sudden I start telling Harley, I said, there's going to be a curve up here. And you got to stay to the right. And I said, there's a curve, it's a sharp curve. He's just going faster and faster. I said, Harley, there's a sharp curve up here. I got it, kid. And I'm like, I'm telling you, there's a sharp curve up here. And we don't need to be pulled over. You know, we've had a lot to drink. All of a sudden we get to the curve. It's obvious we're not going to make it. We get about halfway around it. We shoot up over the curb, go down through this field, and bam, we hit a great big light pole. I mean, one of those big metal ones. And I'm like, and Harley had leaned over and literally stuck his arm across me to keep me from going into the windshield. So he hits his head, tears the rearview mirror off, splits his head. We stop. He looks at me and said, you okay, kid? I said, yeah. He gets out, looks at the car. He said, I think it'll run. He backs up. Here we go. So we're looking around. Nobody's there. So the next morning, we had to take the car back.
It's a rental?
It's a rental car.
Oh, wow.
And so we pull up, and he pulls up where you're supposed to pull in. He backs in where they can't see the front of it. He gets out, hollers at them, and they were all marks. They were like, hey, Mr. Race, how are you? Great, here's the keys. Throws it, and we're out of there. They call me a couple days later. Did you guys wreck the car? I was like, I don't remember wrecking the car.
That's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. Harley was crazy. He drove insanely fast.
Yeah. Yeah, you know. Tell you another good story. Rick don't like to tell it. Rick used to have he's going to go up against Dusty. They're going to see who's got the most powerful truck. And so they're in a parking lot. They're going to go head to head and see who can push the other one. Dusty pushed him all over the parking lot.
That was Wahoo.
Yeah, it was Wahoo.
Wahoo, not Dusty. Oh, yeah. I don't mind that story. Yeah, the Bronco beat the Jeep.
Oh.
Yeah, we used to have a lot of fun. God. So, I'm going to ask a question that a lot of people, I wanted to ask Kevin on the podcast last week, but it's such a sensitive subject, and I have always just figured that the reason all this got to the point where it got out of control with the kids was that Fritz was in denial. What's your take on it?
Well, I lived it.
Yeah.
I know he was in denial.
Yeah.
And
so do you actually think? But I know I'll have you tell a story about when you had to go out and talk to him about David. But do you think that? I mean, it was so blatantly obvious. Everybody knew that they were just having issues.
I think everyone knew. I think where Fritz was back then, you didn't have Google, you didn't have all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think he was innocently ignorant of what kind of drugs they were doing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they weren't just doing the marijuana or it was Quaaludes.
Yeah.
It was back then. It was uppers, downers.
Yeah.
And it was sad. A lot of people ask me, what happened to them? How can you have that many deaths in a family? And I said, well, it tells you it's not money.
Yeah.
Because they had money.
Yeah.
And it's been incredible. It was. I was between a rock and a hard spot because here I'm the right-hand guy.
Yeah.
And, as you know, I could lecture all I wanted to.
Yeah.
But it just went in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. Conrad David refereed a match one night we had in Fort Worth on TV live, and we couldn't find Kerry for the match. And David and I were in the ring. They played his music about 3 times. And finally came running out the door, right? His shoes completely unlaced. Completely unlaced. Shoestrings.
No laces in them at all.
No, he had
laces in them, but they weren't laced up.
Okay.
They were laced up right to the arch, right, and the whole boot was unlaced. And he was running around the ring, and he's hollering at David, "Where is she? Where is she?" And David goes, "Who?" And we got an hour to wrestle now.
Right.
I mean, that wasn't isolated. We did that a lot. Just crazy.
Did it a lot. But then they had the other side of him. Kerry has knee surgery.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna go an hour in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks. Kerry has back then. Kevin had he had to have the full cut.
Yep.
But they started doing the scoping. So Kerry has his knee scoped. I'll never forget. Fritz asked the doctor, "Can he wrestle?" And he said, "Oh man." He said he can't injure it. I fixed it, but he said it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And remember in San Antonio, he showed
Yeah,
up. He had
yeah.
it wrapped, but
Yeah.
You guys went an hour.
Oh yeah, but that was you on the inside and Theory on the outside.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it was on. You know what it was? At the time, I had to take a Lear jet out of Columbus, Ohio. Remember the snowstorm?
Yep.
Oh God, it was brutal. I was up all night long with Tommy Rich raising hell in Columbus. Woke up snowstorm, and I got to be there for 3:00 show on Super Bowl Sunday, right?
Yep.
Sold out in San Antonio. Joe and Harry, that was called Joe and Harry, right?
Yep.
And so I had to take a Lear jet from Columbus. I mean, Fritz paid for it, but I would have missed the shot because the weather was an issue again, right?
Right.
But that's the way I'd be on the other side of the world sometimes and have to be in town the next day. So,
Well, Kevin and I talk, and David had the business mind. Mm-hmm. David would have been a great champion.
oh, for sure.
And we always, Kevin and I, we're straight. We lived it. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about the deaths, and we always say if it would have been one of the other brothers instead of Dave, we'd have probably kept going because Dave was more into wanting to promote and
Yeah.
wanting to be involved in the business. And, and Kevin came around later, but Kerry never really did. Kerry, he was such a super. When Rick says, it was like Michael Jackson coming to town.
Right.
It was free. Matter of fact, the Olympians back when Mary Lou Redden,
Yeah.
Laganis, and all them,
Yeah.
they're coming here to make an event. They're going to show up at the mall, and I'm the referee. I go to the mall on a Saturday, and oh my God, you would have thought I was one of the Olympians.
Yeah.
The people came and now they all got cameras. They all
Yeah.
got everything you can think of. And matter of fact, it was funny because remember that I wore that $20 gold piece.
Oh, yeah.
With the diamonds. Some lady about 60 walks up and she's like, "Oh, those medals are so nice," and she's touching my gold piece, and I'm like, "Oh no, that." And her daughter's looking at me like, "Don't say anything, don't say anything." She thought that was Olympic medal.
Right. That's amazing.
And of course, you didn't smarten her up.
No. And what's funny is, the athletes never got to come.
Yeah.
Because the security, they were worried about security. So as I'm leaving the building, here's a guy walking in the parking lot. He's got a kid about 5 years old. And so I'm signing a few autographs, and all of a sudden he comes over and says, "Here, get his autograph." Well, the kid wasn't a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, who is that, Daddy? And he goes, I don't know, but get his damn autograph. We drove 40 miles.
Wow. All right, now it's time to talk about Draftkings.com, our longest-running sponsor here on Wooooo Nation. So if you enjoyed the podcast, please support our sponsor. Go check out Draftkings.com and make sure you use promo code Flair. They're going to get you a great deal we're going to tell you all about. But first, why should you go to DraftKings? Well, because it's like a brand new season every single week. So forget your regular 16-week season of fantasy football. This allows you to go ahead and play and hit the reset button every single week. Who saw Matthew Stafford coming last week? Man, he blew it up. Wouldn't it suck if you had Aaron Rodgers and that was your only quarterback this week? He's on a bye. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff with DraftKings.com. So if you've got an injured player, no problem. It's like a new season every single week. You won't get stuck. And DraftKings is crowning a new millionaire every single week this season. And that means finally you're able to turn your love of football into a payday of a lifetime. It's really simple. You just pick up your players, you pile up the points, then you pick up your cash. It's that easy. Believe me, you've never experienced football like this before. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. So stop what you're doing. Hurry to DraftKings.com right now and use promo code FLAIR, and you'll play for free with your very first deposit in this Sunday's $1 million fantasy football contest, where first place takes home $100,000. So go ahead, enter Flair right now for free entry at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com. Now let's get back to David Manning.
So we touched on a few. Go ahead. You have a question.
Not to get back to the negativity of what happened and the tragedy with the Von Erichs, but there's been a lot of speculation, and maybe it's just one of those things in wrestling. What do you think really happened with David?
Well, I know for a fact because I always either traveled with Kevin, Dave, or Kerry, and sometimes all of us would be in the same car. And that whole week, Dave had been sick, and he would wrestle because we wrestled in Austin. We had a show in Austin. Then we were coming back here, and he was actually going to take off because after the matches, he was throwing up almost every night. And he talked about his stomach hurting, throwing up. So he was going to miss a show, and Fritz was like, no, you got to make the show. You can fix it when you get back from Japan. So he left for Japan, and we didn't think anything about it. And I get a call about 3 o'clock in the morning. And my wife at that time, she said, I can't understand him. So
Help me run it, right?
Yeah. And so I get on the phone, and this voice says, David Manning? I said, yes. He says, Joe Higuchi, All Japan Pro Wrestling. David Von Erich dead. Just like that. I'm like, what? David Von Erich dead. So I thought it was a rib.
Right.
I'm like, okay, I'll call you back. So he hangs up. I go down. Back then we had a little book, the NWA book. So I call All Japan Pro Wrestling and ask for Joe Higuchi. He gets on the phone. I said, Joe, it's David Manning. He said, David Von Erich dead. Fine in hotel. He says, okay, I call wife now. I said, don't call anybody. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And back then, Fritz was building that big home down in Edom, Texas. And so he was living in a motor coach. So back then, we could have called the state troopers. Anybody would have went. But I called Ken Mantell, and I told him, and I said, I'm going to go tell Fritz in person.
Right.
So I left. From the time it took me to drive, I got there it was just coming daylight. And you had to wind down through the woods to get back where he was at. And as I pulled up, I can see him in the front of the motor coach. He's making coffee. And he saw me pulling in, and I got out. And as I got to the door of the motor coach, he opened the door, and he looks at me and says, which one? Oh. But he meant injured or hurt, I think, And I said, Fritz, I said, I prayed about this all the way down. And he's like, just tell me. I said, can we go sit down? He said, just tell me. I said, your son David's dead. So we went in, we sat there, and he's like, what, how? And I'm like, I don't know. They called me. And he kept looking at the bedroom. I knew he was thinking he had to tell Doris. And so he says, go get me some answers. So back then you didn't have cell phones.
Right.
So I drove into Edom, and when I came back, I called over. I got a hold of Brody. Brody was there. So I talked to Brody. Bill Irwin was there.
Yeah.
And he told me the story. They found him looked like he was trying to get to the phone.
He'd regurgitated.
Yeah, and
they've been at that restaurant bar that's so famous over there.
And he'd ate sushi.
The steakhouse.
The steakhouse. No, he'd been at the steakhouse, Rivera Steakhouse.
Yeah, and
Love those guys.
So they when I got back, Doris almost met me where you start down into the woods, and she was like, "It was a mistake, right? It was a mistake." I was like, "No, he's dead." And Fritz looked at me then, "Get my boy home." He never made one call to Japan, and they had the funeral scheduled, and we were still trying to get him here. And they actually flew him, because in Japan they don't embalm. They flew him to the naval base in Japan, across Japan, embalmed him, and then brought him straight here, and we took him from the plane straight to where the funeral's at. 5,000 people packed the church and outside the church. It was incredible. And the whole city of Dallas was shut down. Back then, if you had a funeral brigade, you could, on the street, that you would have the escorts, but on the highway you couldn't. When we got on the highway to go from Denton to Elk Grove Cemetery, every entrance and every exit had a motorcycle cop or a police car there blocking it. All the way. The whole highway was shut down. And then when we got there, they would pass us one by one. And when we got there was probably 60 motorcycle cops and policemen lined up with their hats off on their chests as we came down with the funeral.
Wow. Wow. Was it that way for each one of them?
It was that way. First it was David.
Right.
And then Carrie, it was 2 years later, Mike Von Erich, he got toxic shock syndrome. And his shoulder kept getting dislocated. He had surgery. And I didn't even know a guy could get toxic shock. Back then you thought it was just a feminine disease. And well, he gets it. They take him to Baylor, and he was sick. I mean, he was so sick. And they gave us a whole.
Mike only weighed about 170 pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they gave us a big suite upstairs, where all the Herschel Forrester, the top Jimmy Aston, the top people in Dallas, the top business people would come, and all the church, First Baptist, Fritz, Dr. Criswell. And literally we saw a miracle, the first miracle I've ever seen. Remember Gary Holder, we called him the world-class evangelist because he did big revivals all over the country. Mike was doing a little better. He'd been in the hospital about a week. And Fritz actually headed home. And when Kevin and I are standing there, and there's about 10 of us in the room, we're talking, and all of a sudden Bill Sutker, the doctor, comes out, and he's got another doctor with him. He literally looked at us and he says, "Where's Fritz?" We said he left. He said, "You need to get a hold of him. You need to get him here quick." He said he's not going to make it. He said his blood pressure is dropping, his vitals, his organs are shutting down. And he said, Kevin said, "How long?" And he said, "Not long. You need to get Fritz here." He said, "We've tried everything we can do. You need to get him here." Well, back then, like I say, so we actually called the sheriff's department. They said they would pull him over on the highway. And so the doctors walked back in, and we're standing there, and Gary Holder said, "Let's pray." And I'd never seen anything like it. Gary Holder took the Bible, and he just slams it down on the table. And he said, "There are millions of people praying for this kid. You know it." And he said, "There's your word. You say, if we pray, you'll deliver." He said, "I demand you deliver. These doctors say they've done everything they can do. You know things they can do. You know experimental things they can do." That was his exact words. And it wasn't a minute after he quit. Doctors came out, and Bill Sutker said, "Well," I can't remember the other doctor's name. He said he thought maybe we'd try this experimental drug. And he said his blood pressure's normal. 1 week later, we pushed him out of the hospital in a wheelchair.
Wow.
Okay, but ultimately something happened in a sleeping bag.
Well, what happened was he was never the same. And then he rushed. He came back to the business. He showed up at the Cotton Bowl. He wasn't ready. And he came back.
No,
go ahead.
What you're saying, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm kind of overwhelmed by all this. So this Holter gentleman.
Yep, Gary Holder.
Was talking to God.
Yes.
Okay, and you were there to see this?
Yes.
Wow.
I was there to see it. And it was, the doctors repeated almost word for word what he had just prayed. And
so you believed it?
Oh, it was a miracle.
Yeah.
We actually did recordings of it from each one of us that was in that room, because I knew it was a miracle. I mean, he walked out, and he was an atheist. Bill Sutker was an atheist, and he told us later, he said, "I don't know what happened that night, but that kid was dead." And he said,
wow.
For him to leave the hospital, he said, "I would have told you he'd have never leave." So he said, "I don't know what power did it, but it wasn't us."
Yeah.
And but then unfortunately, Mike, it was about 6 weeks after that, he was missing, and he was real close with Chris, the youngest one.
Yeah.
And they couldn't find him, and then we put a search party on. We looked everywhere, and then they found him in a sleeping bag out by Lake Dallas, and he had taken about 20 Quaaludes.
Yeah.
And then he passed away.
Yeah. Jesus. That's so sad. So then it was Mike.
That was Mike, and then a year later,
Chris
shot himself up in Lake Dallas. Up in at Fritz's place there at the ranch.
Chris was like asthmatic. He was only like about 150 pounds, right? It was like
his growth was kind of stunted his growth, taking all the prednisone and different things he took for the asthma. And I think he was always just feeling like he was the outcast.
Right.
And he had finally started bulking up a little bit for him.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he broke his arm, and he was just down.
Yeah.
And, and then, Kerry, I would have never thought, because matter of fact, Kerry literally called Kevin. Fritz was pouring concrete, and Kerry called Kevin and said he was going to kill himself. Well, back then,
this was after he got in trouble.
This was after he got in trouble. He got busted again. I think he thought he was going to do some time.
Yeah, that's what we all thought.
And he had lost the foot. Nobody, we hadn't told. The fact the doctors kept that was quiet was unbelievable. He had the.
Let's talk about that, because that's something that's really big in wrestling. When did you know that happened, and how did the family handle it and all that?
This is how my days of booking started out. The day we'd had the incident with Ken Mantell at Reunion Arena, and Ken had quit, had gone for Bill Watts. So I was booking. The first week I take over, we're rocking.
Yeah.
And I get the phone call, and Fritz says, Kerry's been in a motorcycle wreck. He's not going to be able to make the show tonight. You need to get somebody down there. So I didn't think it was that bad, Well, then when I got back and I went to the hospital, it looked like an alligator had chewed on his leg. So they literally did about 8 hours of surgery, tried to repair it to the point it looked like it was going to be all right. And then he's coming down the stairs. Remember the stairs to the sportatorium? He come flying around those stairs and coming down, and it just snapped because the bone wasn't getting enough blood.
Yeah.
Well, then they amputated it. Well, Kerry didn't want anybody to know. I thought it would have been a great story for the people with prosthesis, that you can still, because it was incredible. He could almost do anything he'd always done. But they kept it quiet, and
why do you think that was? I'm with you. I think it would have made for a lot of really cool storylines.
I think Kerry was embarrassed. He was just at the point, he didn't look at it the way we all looked at it.
He thought it was a weakness.
He thought it was a weakness, and he was just, embarrassed with the prosthesis. And
do you think that may have been something he thought would keep him from being in the running for the NWA Championship?
Probably. Well, he had already been the world champion, and I don't think they would have gave him the belt back.
Right.
So,
because he couldn't be trusted because of his demons, or because of this potential foot issue?
No, I think
he had his foot when he was champion.
No, but I'm saying, maybe that's the reason he didn't want it out, because maybe people would say, he can't be champ. He
at the time he lost his foot, he was in WWF, wasn't he?
No.
Well, still here.
No, he was still here. It was my first week of booking.
Oh, okay.
So that's where we had to. Here we got the Birds. We got. It was the perfect match when the Birds come along, because there's three of them. There's three Von Erichs. Right. Well, then we lose Dave, and then now all of a sudden Kerry's out, and we needed a Von Erich. That's when I found Lance.
Yeah.
And we created a Von Erich, and so Lance and Kevin would literally do 2 shows a night. Because back then, especially on Saturday, we would have 2 towns running. Right. We would go sell out high school stadiums on Saturday nights for charity. We would give them 60% of the gate. We would take 40. And Lance would be at one town and then make the next one, and then Kev would do the same thing. They were rotating. So wherever Kerry was booked, one of them would hit both shots.
They would go to Plano, Texas, right? 10 miles out of town, right? And do $30,000 on a Friday night, which was big money in the 80s.
Absolutely.
In a high school gym, $30,000-$40,000, right?
$30,000-$40,000. Well, we got to where we couldn't even do the high school gyms. We'd do the football stadium.
Yeah.
So they'd have a football stadium might hold 3,000 people. We'd sell it out.
Yeah.
And a lot of the schools around back then, we were responsible for all the band equipment, the lights around the football field, and the Easter Seals. I became the host of Easter Seals. Wrestling was so popular on CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network, Channel 39, that when they did the Easter Seals telethon, they didn't want They preempted every show for 24 hours, but they didn't want to preempt wrestling because the ratings were so high.
Yeah.
And so they said, can someone come down and throw it from the Easter seals to the ring? So they sent me down. So they had the big board where all the people took the phone calls and everything. Well, back then, a lot of them were a little bit, I'm going to say, snobbish that they were using wrestlers.
Yeah.
And Kerry and Kevin were coming that afternoon to make appearance at the Easter Seals telethon. So some people were kind of complaining about it. So I go in. Well, I was more upbeat. I'd say, hey, we're going to go to the ring. We got Michael Hayes and whoever, Kabuki or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then we'd come back, and I'd try to get them to donate. Well, I left, and then that afternoon I get a phone call. Says Dick Beauvais, who was the head of Channel 39, wants you to come back and work the Easter Seals. I go back. Kerry and Kevin come, and they said, why don't we put them on the phones? I said, you can't put them on the phones. And he said, well, we'll say whoever donates. Back then, $100 was a big donation. They were like,
Sure.
Anybody donates $100 gets to talk to Kevin or Kerry. Honest to God. Bam! All the phones went down. They blew the Southwestern Bell circuit.
Oh, I believe it, yeah.
All the people calling. And so then they were like, oh, my God, how popular are these guys? But for me, I came back and helped. The next year, Easter Seals had me come again. Then the next 10 years in a row, I was the host. It was always me and two of the news anchors, depending on which station it was on, hosted
that's
Easter
cool.
Seals. A lot of big connections I made from there, motivational speaking, different things. So, wrestling's been a blessing for me in many ways.
You're an interesting guy.
Oh, yeah. He's the most interesting man
So
in Texas, for
who have
sure.
you had the most fun with over the years?
Slick Rick. I mean,
I've got to ask you, what I know where my hair has gone. I've been married 4 times. You've only been married once. What happened to the do?
you guys pulled it out.
Every time I see a guy with less hair than me that hasn't been married 4 times, I have to ask the question.
Pull it out.
Nobody ever squeezed your tooth with it, did?
No. Yeah, they pulled it out. God. You heard some. We can't tell all the stories,
No.
Yeah, some of those from last
some
night
of
maybe we can't tell, but maybe you can tell a story about ribbing Rick.
That
Oh,
was
God.
good. Yeah, I hate you sometimes.
So Rick was dating this girl on and off.
I can say I'm divorced.
Yeah, he's divorced, but he was living at home. And
I was living with somebody.
Oh, yeah.
But it was my house, and she was just there, okay? I ended up marrying her, but it was my house, and I was still in charge. One of the few moves I've ever made that was semi-smart. So
He's seeing this girl on and off named Jana, so he brings her to town. So I meet her. She travels with us for a week. So then he takes her to Australia, comes back, and he goes.
Is this the hairdresser?
Yeah.
now she wasn't here. This is the one that went to the University of Nebraska.
Okay.
Yeah, he's getting ready to go to Australia, and Fritz hadn't paid yet. We just did Texas Stadium, 42,000 people, biggest at that time, biggest ever. It was before WrestleMania, and so Rick's getting ready to head to Australia, and he's taking Janet to Australia. He comes over, he says, "Hey, they haven't paid me yet. Go ahead, give me $25,000, and I'll give it to you when I get back when I get my check." So I give him $25,000. He goes to Australia.
That's how fun she was.
Yeah, he parties down and has a good time. So he comes back, and he just
The
says,
referee loans the champ
Yeah.
$25,000.
No.
But yeah, he did.
"But I got his check."
Yeah, but my check was only $12,000.
Yeah. I'm like, oh.
I was upside down $12,000 when I got back.
So anyway, I call a month later, 2 months later, I call Charlotte, and Beth answers the phone, and I said, "Hey, Beth, it's Dave. Is Rick there?" She says, "No, they're doing some kind of interviews tonight. He'll be back in a little bit. You want me to have him call you?" And I said, "Hey, let's play a rib on him." I said, "I tell you what, I'm going to call back later, and you tell."
I don't know why you thought this was funny.
Yeah, it backfired. So anyway, I said, "Here's what I'll do." I said, "I'm going to call, and I'll have a girl with me, and I said, I'm going to act like I'm the operator, and I'm going to say, collect call for Ric Flair from Jana." And she said, "Oh." And she said, and I said, "But I want you to listen on the other phone, and I want him to know it." So
Well, at that time, she thought Jana was just a fictitious name.
Right.
And I wasn't married to Beth at the time.
Sure.
But
Jana's
I don't
just
know
a
why.
random name in
I don't
her
know
mind.
why he thought this was funny.
So anyway, so we call back, and she answers the phone, and I said, "Is Rick there?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "Tell him to collect call."
I'm sitting down when it was a 3-bedroom, one-story home. What do you call that?
Split level.
Split level on the lake and everything. So she'd answer the phone in the kitchen, hardline, not cell phone. And I've got a phone next to me on the table. So she goes, phone call for you.
So she stays on the phone where Rick picks the phone up and he said, hello?
And he says, operator. And I said to Beth, hang the phone up. She said, why?
Yeah, because I go, click call for Ric Flair. He said, this is Ric Flair. Go ahead. I said, is this Mr. Ric Flair, the wrestler?
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't say it yet. At that point, I didn't. I said, so this is Ric Flair. You have a click call from Jana. He's kind of quiet for a second. Go ahead.
Then I'm hollering, Beth, put the phone on.
Yeah.
Beth goes, who's Jana?
And so
I'm screwed,
Yeah. So he's listening on the phone, and so I have the girl. She says, Rick, I'm pregnant. And he goes, he doesn't respond. I'm like, give it to him again. She says, Rick, I'm pregnant. And he says, oh, and I suppose it's mine.
and Beth is over there fuming. I mean, she's riding this full out like, what? And then he goes again.
So then I come back on.
Hang up. Calls me back.
I call back. He says, he answered the phone. I said, that's what I said. Is this Ric Flair, the wrestler? The world heavyweight champion? I said, you low-life son of a bitch. He said, get off the phone. First, he told me to get off the phone, the operator.
I said, don't call me back. Get 3 times.
That's what I said. You low-life wrestler champion. I said, you bang some girl up, and all of a sudden he's like, Manning, I'm going to freaking kill you.
But then we get off the phone, and Beth says, who's Jan? Anyway, why did you come up with that name? I go,
So was it really Jana or just some random girl?
No, it was another girl, but I didn't think about the backlash when she. I should have used a fictitious name.
I hate you sometimes. So much fun. Oh my God. Holy cow. David Manning and Ric Flair.
Oh.
Give us a couple more.
So why was the TV here so hot? Everybody talks about how great the TV was, and I know Keith Mitchell left here and went up to
WCW. Let me throw something
WCW.
else too. They were the first ones, Keith Mitchell, but a lot of it with David's direction to do these vignettes.
Right.
So when I came to town here, they had me out at the Galleria with the chicks, putting on their clothes. I mean, these were vignettes that were knocked them dead. I mean, the one with Jimmy and Precious working.
Sunshine,
she works hard for her money. They were making Von Erich or making Jimmy.
Bad Street USA with the birds.
Yeah.
And what it did was, I mean, when I first got in wrestling was shot with one camera that was active, and it was still 30 feet from the ring, and the other one was just a stationary camera set up to shoot. And then once we got involved with Channel 39, then it became the idea that let's put cameras by the ring and the slow motion, and then all of a sudden the music coming to the ring, and then we started shooting the vignettes. And the vignettes is really, I think, what took it to the next level, because you got to, it wasn't just a guy coming to the ring now. You got to get to know him. You got to see his hobbies. You got to be part of what was really happening outside the ring. And like Chris Adams, he played soccer, so we actually took him down with the professional soccer players here, the team, and he went out and did the backflip kick, and kicked it in the goal. And so we would shoot those, and oh man, it started booming. But the biggest key was at that time, Channel 11 was actually bigger. Turner had, in the beginning, Turner was paying everybody 10 cents to take his station. That's what, remember? Yeah. That's why his station became so big in cable. But Channel 11 was the superstation. So then when we started syndicating, we had such a big range.
Channel 11 here in Dallas.
And then we had so many athletes. I mean, we had the perfect story. You had the Birds and the Von Erichs. Then right underneath that, we had Chris Adams against Jimmy Garvin and Sunshine. Then right under that, we had Iceman King Parsons. And he and Buddy always had an angle going. And we just had good talent. At that time, everybody wanted to come to Dallas.
Right.
And we were rocking. I mean, and then when we decided to go, the tapes, we started syndicating all over the U.S., and all of a sudden Vern Gagne calls, wants Kerry to come up to Chicago. I even went and refereed a match at the Superdome for Watts, Abdullah the Butcher and the Sheik.
Yeah.
Holy cow, was that a bloodbath.
Yeah.
And so it...
They went to Boston, and they couldn't get in the building, so they went outside to some...
Manning Bowl. It was called Manning Bowl.
And they drew $85,000 house.
Wow.
It really, I mean, that made everybody take notice.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
yeah. Because at that time, the only ones that went in there was Vince.
And they would, and they wouldn't let me go.
And you were saying last night that, you know, a lot of people say that the territory here really didn't get that hot until the Freebirds came in, but you have a different slant on that.
Well, what happened was we started getting Gary Hart created the angle with Kabuki.
Right.
And when Kabuki came, we were drawing, like the Sportatorium would hold about 4,000. And then Will Rogers Coliseum was bigger. It would hold about 6,000. We were drawing about, 75% of the house. Well, when Kabuki came, he was such a mystery that, we would just pack it out. Kids were scared of him. He blew the mist, the whole works. And so...
how'd you guys build him up? Just a lot of these vignettes you were talking about?
Yeah, and Brody had broke onto the scene then. And when people first saw Brody, I mean, even... the people that thought they were smart thought Brody was just the baddest thing they'd ever seen. He wore those big furry boots, and he would kick ass when he got in the ring. And so we had Brody, we had Kabuki, and the houses started. We sold out a few. We had our first big show down at the State Fair. And then the Birds came. And see, when the Birds first came, they were babyface. Well, now we got 6 baby faces. We got the 3 Von Erichs, and we got the Birds. So we came up with the angle. We shot at... Reunion Arena, where Kerry's fighting Flair, and Michael Hayes is special referee with me in the ring. And then we did the angle to where Michael starts interfering in the match, and he's trying to help Kerry win the title, and I'm trying to stop him, and then he ends up getting into it. And so he goes out of the gate, and to win the match, you had to get out of the ring.
Right.
First one out of the ring won. So Kerry goes to climb out of the ring, and as he did, we had Gordy slam the gate. We had the latch down. We had to make sure the latch was down or it would have killed him. Bam! They closed the gate. He comes back, and then the feud was on from there. And then we sold out every show. Everywhere we went, it was sold out. It was the perfect, it was 3 Freebirds, 3 Von Erich. We came up with the 6-man United States Championship. And... that's actually where we split away. Mm-hmm. We became World Class Championship Wrestling right in the beginning of the era when the Birds came, because we kind of split away. Crockett had the deal, and we created our own world champion, and that was really.
How did Fritz come up with the name World Class?
Believe it or not, well, we were all sitting in the office, and what you read online is not true. We're sitting in an office, and we were sitting around talking, and he says, we got to come up with a different name. And we started kicking around, it's got to be something classy. It's got to be something. And so we came up with World Class Wrestling. And but that was WCW. And you had Atlanta was so close. So we came up with World Class Championship Wrestling. Yeah. And I'll never forget, Fritz called his lawyer and said, you think they can come after us for that? We're so close to their name. And he said, no, it's a different name. And so that we went with it. We changed all the branding, and it was, God, people don't know, it was a hell of a ride. Yeah. Hell of a ride. Fun times.
Absolutely. We've had fun times here today.
We have. I told you, it's amazing, huh?
Yeah.
I just had to mention one more thing, because I always like to talk about David. Is like the movie, The Hustler.
Yeah, with Paul Newman.
With Paul Newman, right? Was nothing compared to this guy right here today. How many 300 games?
17.
Talking about bowling.
Bowling.
Yeah.
I've had 17.
300 games.
And you were telling me a story last night that you guys had a scene like out of the movie Kingpin.
Yeah.
Where some shenanigans went down.
No, he would say to me, we have the time in the afternoon for the show. He says, go to the bowling alley. Well, I didn't like bowling, but he'd go in there, and he'd come guys and see him, and pretty soon he's betting, and he's over at the pool table, and loses a couple of games. Pretty soon he's up $5,000.
That's what this is. This is for bowling. This is actually harder to do than a 300 is to bowl an 800 series in 3 straight games. You got to average 267.
Wow.
Like this one, I had 32 strikes out of 36 shots.
Yeah. It's a real deal. He was the hustler, man. He knew where we went. Somebody wanted to play pool. David said, no, I don't want to feel like it. Okay,
or wrestle. You know what we used? You know what? Last story. You know,
one game. Yeah,
we used to have guys come to the sportatorium. They'd want to wrestle. They want to break into wrestling.
Yeah.
So I wrestled all through high school, college. When Dan Gable, I actually wrestled Dan Gable at a camp one time. I didn't win that one, and and so
probably not. Only one guy did.
Yeah, exactly, Larry Owens.
Yeah.
And so we would have guys come down to the sportatorium and want to wrestle, and so they would say, okay, well, we'd bring them down to the ring. Well, first, for a fan that's never hit the ropes are 3/4 inch piece of steel with a tape wrapped around it back then.
Yeah.
And if you weren't used to hitting them, it would hurt your ribs. So I'd make them hit the ropes, and I'd make them like dive from like 5 feet away and hit the ropes. So I'd run them back and forth. Well, then I'd get in the ring and say, okay, let's wrestle for a little bit. And I'd get them down, beat them, and Bronco would always come down and goes, my God, you can't even beat the referee. You want to wrestle?
Wow.
And then when you go out and get drunk.
Oh, I'm down there one time, and I got this old farm boy in there, and he was just raw bone, elbow. I can't do anything with him. I mean, he's not doing anything to me, but I can't do anything with him. And Sakurada, remember Sakurada?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Ito and Sakurada were in town. So Sakurada comes down, and he says, let me show. Yeah. So he goes in the ring, and he tells the guy to tie up. So they tie up, and then he headbutts him right in the nose. Smash. His nose is bleeding. Oh, so sorry, he says. So the guy's bleeding. Oh, he's like, so he finally stops. Sakurada said, okay, we ready now? So they tie up again. Bam! He headbutts him in the same nose again. I was like, oh, God. I told Sakurada, we're going to get a lawsuit here.
It was a different time.
Oh.
That doesn't go on at the Performance Center. No.
No.
Guys trying to get in our business in the old days, it was rough.
It's time to go to school. Wooooo Nation will return shortly.
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
This is Wooooo Nation with Ric Flair.
So why'd you decide to get out of the wrestling business?
It was literally after Mike's death. I was running everything. Fritz had moved down to, he wasn't coming in that much, and he was calling in 2 or 3 times, a week, and we're trying to run a show, and we had I won't get into it, but we had a difference of opinion, and Bum Bright came in and bought part of the business back then.
There's a name of the past.
Yeah.
Bum Bright, I'd forgotten that name.
He owned the Cowboys.
Yep.
And so they came in, they bought part of the company, and you know how it is. We had people trying to run the company that didn't understand the business. And Rick, every time he come to town, was trying to get me to come to work for Crockett.
Yep.
And so
I got Keith Mitchell.
You got Keith Mitchell, and then he got me eventually. So I left. I went to work for Crockett. Matter of fact, they had an office here. Jim Barnett was there working out of the office.
Yeah.
And so I started working for them. And it was kind of frustrating because Dusty was the booker, and JJ was his right-hand guy. So they would sit in and do all the finishes. Well, I'd come sit in, and I was like, I want to help with the finishes.
Yeah.
And Dusty he didn't hardly ever come to Dallas.
Right.
So he didn't know what I did here. Right?
Yeah.
And so he didn't know I was really the finish guy. And so I remember I went in and complained to Jim Barnett one time. I said, I feel like I'm just getting paid for nothing here.
Yeah.
And Jim Barnett says, is your check coming every week? I said, yeah. He said, well, go sit in your office and enjoy it.
Wow.
He was.
Yeah, I know. So what the heck? But that's when things turned around. I mean, but that was the era that he and I ran, and him and Harley, or he and Harley, and then the Von Erichs, God rest their souls, and the Freebirds and Brody, and I mean, look at the kids that are gone. Gino Hernandez. I mean,
I told you, I saw a tape.
Yeah.
I'm in Atlanta. ESPN was showing an old tape. There was 2 matches and a tag team match on a 30-minute reel. So you're talking 6 wrestlers, the other referee, and the announcer. I was the only one on the tape alive.
Wow.
Buzz Sawyer was on the tape.
Oh, yeah.
Brody was on the tape. Chris Adams was on the tape.
Gino.
The 2 of the Von Erichs were on the tape.
Yeah.
Gino was on the tape. It was a highlight reel. They were all, and the Rick Hazard was the referee. He was gone. And Ralph Pulley was the announcer. He was dead. I was like, They call it the world-class curse. I mean, there's so many guys passed, And just recently, Dusty and I, boy, we had some trips, hunting trips and fun, and then Dusty's gone. And that's why I was so glad to see Rick, and then Roddy Piper. And so I saw Rick was coming to town last week for Bill Bates, and I was trying to fly back. I said, I got to go see him, man. And then out of nowhere, he calls me the next day. I'm like, what the hell? How,
Yeah.
Did Piper come through world class? No. I don't remember that.
No, but I when I would go up to Atlanta and stuff, and
Sure.
because I got to go outside of this area, and then so that's where I kind of saw Piper.
But a lot of guys did get their start here, or they're one of their first big breaks. We talked last night a little bit about Cactus Jack Manson.
Cactus Jack, King Kong Bundy, the Warrior. Here we called him the Dingo Warrior. When Vince got him, Vince would change your name so he could
Sure.
control the name.
Yeah.
And Ravishing Rick Rude.
What was the Undertaker here?
Well, the Undertaker, believe it or not, was trying to break in here, and we never gave him a shot. I mean, he was just a big redheaded kid that,
He had his first match.
Yeah.
Which he just told me about last week in Mexico with his first match with Brody.
Brody.
Wow.
What a way to start in the business.
Oh.
Yeah.
And, hats off to him. He's one of the icons in the industry, man.
Yeah.
The guy's so
That match
good.
with Brody, was that here in this territory? I know you said Mexico, but you meant y'all were in Mexico last week talking about this.
Talking about that. Was at the Sportatorium.
Okay.
Brody and take his first match ever.
Steve Austin.
Austin was here?
Steve Austin was wrestling with Jack Victory here, tag team guys. And matter of fact, first place he wrestled out of here, I had Steve down at the Caribbean. I promoted St. Thomas and St. Martin and all that. And so Jack Victory came in, and it was going to be hard to get a break here. We had the Fantastics. We had the Rock and Roll Express was coming back and forth from here to Watts. So it was hard for those guys. I can't think of Cornette and his guys were here. The Midnight Express. Yeah. And so it was hard for him to get a break. And so Jack Victory came in, and at that time I was booking, and so I called up, and they got a shot up in Atlanta. And man, Steve went up there, and he was one of those guys that. One, he knew he had it. He had the voice. I mean, he had the voice for the perfect interview.
Steve Austin?
Steve Austin.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And he just had that look.
The only guy that didn't get it was Bischoff.
Yeah.
He just couldn't see it with Steve.
And Jim Duggan. I personally trained Jim Duggan for almost 6 straight weeks.
Wow.
Jim played at SMU.
Yeah.
Right.
Played at SMU, then at the Falcons, then in Canada.
So would Jim come to you guys and say, I want to be a wrestler, or would y'all just scout him?
No, he came down the Sportatorium, and Fritz held the discus record at SMU, so Fritz was like, let's do it. Well, I trained all the new guys that came in for like the first 5 weeks until they were ready to get in the ring and start, we'd get in, do arm drags and different things and arm bars, and so I would teach them all that. So I was working with Duggan. Matter of fact, I told the story last night. Bill White comes down one afternoon. I'm working with Jim Duggan, and so we're in the ring working out, and Bill White says, "Let me go with him a little bit." And Bill White was real cocky, and so Bill gets in the ring, and next thing I know, he's got Duggan in a hammerlock, and Duggan's like,
Duggan's tough.
Yeah, and so he was a nose guard. That's like the baddest guy on the football.
But he was also a state champion wrestler in New York.
Yeah.
So how'd that work out for Bill White?
Well, so Bill White puts him in an arm bar, and he's hurting him.
Yeah.
And so then they stop. Then they go, and next thing he's got him in a front face lock, and he's lifting him up. And Duggan's like, oh. So then Duggan says, excuse me, Mr. Manning, can I talk to you? So we get out. He comes out of the ring. We walk over. He puts his arm on me. He says, Mr. Manning, I really want to wrestle. I'll do whatever you tell me. But if that son of a bitch hurts me again, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah, Duggan was tough.
And then he leaves, and the next thing you know, I see him on TV in New York with a 2x4, and I'm like, I sent him a message. I'm like, I said, tell Duggan, where's my 10%?
That's awesome.
Oh God, we'll get going all day long, man. We really appreciate this. Thank you.
We got to get off here. We got drinking to do.
We do. Before we go, let me ask about Gino Hernandez. Gino Hernandez is not a guy that comes up a lot, but I often hear that he was supposed to be or could have been one of the bigger heels in the business.
He was. He didn't have the size to be, he had the talent. Let's put it that way. He had the talent, had the rap. But Gino, he was running with a guy, and I'm assuming they're all either in prison or dead, but he was running with a real bad bunch in Houston, a guy that was one of the biggest dealers in the country, coke and other stuff. And Gino got into it, and he was doing the drugs. And the week before he died, he came in one night to Sportatorium. He was sweating. Comes up. I was the booker. I'm sitting behind the desk. He comes up. He says, "You got a gun? I need your gun." And he was going through a paranoia stage, to where he thought everybody was after him, and he was telling me somebody was in his trunk, and
that's the cocaine.
Yeah, and I was like, "What the heck, Gino?" And so then he leaves. Well, Gino liked to bet football, and he would call me and bet. I mean, if there was a football game on, he was calling me. So he's supposed to be Monday night, Will Rogers Coliseum. He's supposed to wrestle. Forget wrestling. When he didn't show up for the matches, everybody was like, I can't believe Gino missed the show. He didn't call me for the football game. And I told him that night, I said, something bad wrong. I said, when Gino doesn't call for a football game, there's something wrong. Monday Night Football. And so we don't hear from him. A day goes by. Wednesday, we made some calls to Houston. Well, he had a condo out here.
In Las Colinas.
In Las Colinas. So Hazard, I said, go over there and knock on his door. So Rick Hazard goes out there, and his car's there. And they go knock on his door. Well, they go around back, and he was actually laying by the bed. You couldn't see him because he had fell on the one side of the bed. So they get the apartment manager opened his door, and he had been dead probably for 4 days, 5 days. He was all bloated. And Gino was so paranoid. That's why I know they labeled he died of an OD.
You don't buy that?
No, I don't buy it at all because, one, I told you how paranoid he was. He had put like 2 deadbolts on his door. And when they found him, his door wasn't locked, just the bottom one, which locked automatically. And the deadbolts weren't locked. And he had 6 times the amount of coke in him that it took to OD. Wow. So I think he just was running his mouth, or maybe he owed somebody money. I don't know, but I never bought it. That, sad. Because he was a good piece of talent.
Yeah.
He was good talent, good in the ring,
Handsome
good
guy.
looking. Yeah, he was good looking. Could go either way.
Yeah.
And but everybody that came here, like Chris Adams came here, if you wanted to make it here, you had to be heel. So you had to flip because you're not going to get over the Von Erichs. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you had to come here. If you came in as a babyface, you had to flip. And so sooner or later, we'd get them in, like Chris and all of them. We'd flip them to the other side, and then war was on.
So you can stay in Dallas for another day with me?
Well, I think we need to go tip a few and keep this going. And I need the stories that aren't safe for podcast.
Okay. We'll just call them next week. This is going to go over so big. We're going to have them for round 2 next week.
Yeah, I think, I didn't know a lot about World Class, and I certainly didn't know a lot about you, Mr. Manning, but this has been the most fun podcast we've done so far.
Yeah, by far.
I wish we would have taped last night, and I know we would have had to edit out huge chunks. Oh, that real estate joke I'm stealing. I know that's a visual.
Oh, Jesus.
So Rick used to say on airplanes, you would tell the stewardesses, he's a comedian, he's going to be on Carson tonight.
Yeah, I'd be sitting in my seat, and so I'd hear Rick back there. He'd be saying, he's a comedian. He's going to be on Johnny Carson tonight. And so, oh God, the flight attendants back then, they were all female, and so he'd say, go up there and ask him something. He said, and so they'd come up and they say, he said you're a comedian. And first of all, they all recognized us, but so every now and then we'd get one or somebody that wasn't a wrestling fan, and so sooner or later here they'd come, and it was always so they would come up. Oh, you're a comedian? I said, no, I'm in real estate. I said, you know anything about real estate? And they'd say, well, I know a little bit about real estate, and you can't see my hand, but I'd say, is this a lot?
I'm stealing that one. I know a little bit.
Give me another one.
Oh, jeez. I don't know if I could tell. Yeah, most of them we can't tell on
So
the
you're
air.
hunting with Dusty one day. You guys get hammered.
Oh, God. Dusty and I, we start off, we go to this ranch down in West Texas we're going to hunt. And so we get there, and we get to drinking, and it's just me and him, the whole ranch. We got the whole ranch to ourselves. So we're supposed to get up early the next morning, daylight, and go. They're going to put us in these stands. So we get there. We're playing pool, and we're having shots.
You're killing me.
We're having shot after shot after shot. So we're staying in this little cabin thing they had out there. So we go out there, and they got two beds, and so I'm taking my clothes off, and I didn't have any briefs on. So and all of a sudden I'm feeling sick. I'm like, oh, God, I'm sick. So I go out on the porch. And so they had this great big old hound dog. And so, drunker than skunks, I'm bending over, I'm throwing up. I'm just throwing up. Well, I hear Dusty walk out, and I'm like, oh. And all of a sudden, this dog starts licking my ass. And I'm like, that you, Dusty? he says, no, brother, that ain't me. No, you got to hear the whole story. So the next, we can't get up to go hunting. So we get up. No, brother, that ain't me. So,
I can't take it.
So the guide comes and takes us out. So it's the guide, then about 20 yards behind him is Dusty, and then 20 yards behind him is me. So we're walking. Well, we don't want to. Every animal, they had fallow deer, they had elk. Well, an elk was like $5,000, so we didn't want to shoot an elk. So we're walking, and I look and I see, and I'm trying to see if it's a fallow deer, and I'm like, shh, shh. I'm like, Dusty. And he looks. I said, is that an elk? He looks. No, brother, ain't no elk. So I'm looking. I can tell it's an elk. I said, no, that's an elk. He said, brother, I'm telling you, that ain't no elk. Well, all of a sudden, we did something. They ran. Well, behind the elk was a hog. He's looking at the hog. I'm looking at the elk. He's like, brother, that ain't no elk. And so he tries to shoot the hog, and he misses. So the guy says, well, go back there and shoot your gun. So they got like a 6-foot target, big white board.
Yeah.
So Dusty sits down, and they give me a spotting scope. So I'm sitting beside him. Dusty says, he had that lift, you know. He says, okay, brother, I'm gonna cut down on this one now. Let me get down on it. Boom! Well, he didn't even hit the 6-foot board.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. I'm looking. I said, you didn't even hit the board. Oh, well, let me cut down on one. So he says, I'm going to really cut down on this. I'm getting down on this thing. I'm getting down. Boom! Way up in the top right corner, puts a hole in the board. I said, you're like 3 foot from the center. He's like, that's it, brother. I'm getting funky like a monkey. I'm going to get down on this one here. I'm cutting down on this one just like a sniper coming out. Boom! I'm looking, and he says, ooh, I think I cut down on it too much. I look up, and it got so close to the scope, it split his eye open. When it kicked back, he's bleeding all down in front of his face.
Oh, my God.
And I said, yeah, I think you cut down on it too much. And then he lays his gun down, and his scope just fell off. It wasn't bolted down. So his scope was moving around every time he was trying to shoot.
Oh, can't take this.
Mr. Manning, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you, guys. Enjoyed the hell out of it.
We got to stay in touch, man.
Oh.
We'll be doing another one. We're going to have great reviews.
Terry was with me last night. You killed the deal. I can't fly out and meet you anywhere. She heard too many stories.
Yeah. Don't bring your wife around or fiance.
I took her home last night. I said, she said, was all that true? I said, 110%. And I said, you were with us, so tonight you get treated like a groupie.
What a way to end the podcast.
Tonight you're with us, tonight you get treated like a groupie. Did you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. I love you. David Manning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ric Flair. Woo! And Woo Nation with Conrad Thompson. And what an hour and a half we've had with my good friend David Manning, who now Conrad will call every Monday. Especially when
I'm getting the lines now. I'm getting the lines now.
They will have him full-fledged. He's probably had the problem already. We don't know about. But I know he'll play on Alabama every week. So he'll call him just to make sure with you. I'll have to give him your number.
Give it to him. I love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.